What a lively and often unpredictable time we have been given to live in, all of us together. It's great to see different generations represented here in the sanctuary this morning. It's great to be with you, to think about our text, which is one of the, what I would call, summertime stories of Jesus, because in the summer we often look not at Jesus' birth or his death or resurrection, but at the everyday ministry stories of Jesus. Stories of how he interacted with children, women, men, families, the religious leaders of his day, all sorts of different groups, just daily stories. It's a real zinger that we have today, a story of intensity and conflict that would make as good a TV show as any we might find out there today. From Luke chapter 12. I came to cast fire upon the earth. How I wish that it was already ablaze. I have a baptism I must experience. How I'm distressed until it's completed. Do you think that I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you. I've come instead to bring division. From now on, a household of 5 will be divided, 3 against 2, or 2 against 3. Father will square off against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother, and mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Jesus also said to the crowds, when you see a cloud forming in the west, you immediately say, oh, it's going to rain. And indeed, it does. And when a south wind blows, you say, a heat wave is coming. And it does. Hypocrites, you know how to interpret conditions on earth and in the sky. How is it you don't know how to interpret the present time? The word of God for the people of God. Well, I really like this passage because I think it's fun to look at what I would consider to be hard passages or bristly passages. I would guess, I would even say, we can say with confidence that everybody here this morning faced conflict in our families, in our church, maybe in some of our closest friendships, at work, at school. There's not a place where we can go that God isn't present, and there's not a place where we can go that conflict isn't going to happen. So what do we do? How do we listen to Jesus' last question and act on it? How is it that we don't know how to interpret the present time? So to translate that question, how are we currently honing our skills to be in conflict with each other? Because this opportunity to do conflict is going to be with us as long as we have breath. At Cafe Chapel, Joey Baumgartner showed us shark breath. And at 8:15, I invited people just to go to their calm center, however you find your calm center. You can do that, please, anytime. It's good for all of us to do at any time. But I think I would invite you to join me in taking a few shark breaths. Will you raise your hand if you've done this before? Yes. Okay. So help me out, Melissa and JD, because I'm not sure I'm doing it quite right, but it doesn't matter. Here's your dorsal fin. Put it up on your head. Now take a nice deep breath. And as you exhale, your fin down to your belly. Okay, so inhale. We're going to do it 2 more times. Inhale. Last time. That felt nice. I liked it. I'd like to breathe together with you in this place all the time. It's good to find our calm together. Maybe you're not as jangled, anxious as I can get, but it's always good to find our calm. So in the passage today, well, just as an aside, so I invite you at any time this morning to just return to that calm place of breathing. It's never a bad idea. Jesus invites us in this passage to get some clarity about a couple things. Number one, what's the power that we have? Number two, how do we use that power? Number three, how do we feel about being in the world as we are right now with the power we have, with the challenges we have for using that power? And number four, what are we going to do about it? I love Jesus' courage in the Gospels, because no matter who he's with, he is likely, and it is, I'm sure, easier if you're the Son of God, he's just likely to say how it is, and in doing so, to either invite others to say how they are, or to invite others to be in conflict with him. And no matter what kind of situation it is, Jesus is just kind of calmly aware that he's okay, that he's got his power, and he's constantly inviting people to say, how am I? What can I do in this situation? And he's doing that here for us today. He's saying, what are you going to do about conflict? You have it. It's with you. How are you going to use it? How are you going to use who you are and what you have, your story, your life experiences, to figure out how to be in the present moment? And I think it's really interesting that his comment about all the conflicts we face is followed by this comment about the weather. And how cool is it that he talks about the south wind for the people of the south wind, and the clouds forming in the west, that international experience of weather. How does that speak to this experience of conflict? I think Jesus is saying, people, get the memo. There are patterns you are part of, just like the patterns of weather. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or a temple builder to know that just as you can tell what's coming up by looking at the cloud forming in the west or feeling the south wind, just as you can know what kind of weather to expect from those things, you can know how things are going to go down if this person is fighting with this person and you say this. Maybe instead of saying the same thing you always say, maybe you could try something different. Maybe you could change it up. Maybe you could play with this situation of conflict creatively and kind of see what happens. I've been working with a couple people. Well, that makes it sound like a grander plan than it really was. But I had the opportunity to talk with several West Heights members, one who belongs to kind of, the baby boomer generation, and one who belongs to the Generation Z, and so kind of a grandmother-granddaughter distance. And I had the privilege of talking with these members about what are some questions that different generations in a family might ask each other, or in a community might ask each other, that would give us some insights into how one generation sees things differently from another. And what can we learn from those kinds of questions that we can apply to ourselves? And what can we learn from those questions about the power that I have and that you have as the member of your generation or your generation? What are, not that there's only a particular set of powers available to any given generation. We're all different. But what are some of the strengths we have from belonging to a group of people who grew up at the same time? And what are some of the challenges we have being part of a particular generation? And so I was really privileged to get to think of 4 questions with these people. And I like to think of them as a way of looking at how we can do conflict more joyfully, more consciously. Because in the story Jesus is talking about, he's just kind of describing a situation of distress. And he is saying that he's distressed. He's looking at this story takes place halfway through the Gospel of Luke. And so Jesus is talking with the scribes and the Pharisees and the people who are gathered about his anxiety, his pain, about knowing what he's going to have to go through, the persecution he's going to face. And so he's very honest with them. And in talking with them about the fighting they're doing and how they could change things up to understand themselves better, I got to think, okay, so what questions could we ask one another? So I know this is not everybody's favorite thing to do. If you hate this assignment, here's what you can do. You may write down on paper, or you may just think quietly to yourself if this is going to be uncomfortable. But I would like to ask you to find someone who is at least 15 years difference in age. And if you would be willing to do that, I would like you to ask that person one question, just in the time we have right now. And that question is, how would you define growing up? So if you don't want to do it, just sit in your pew. But if you'd be willing, look around you, try to find somebody who's at least 10 years age difference. And it's okay if we guess it wrong. We don't want to ask anybody for their age if they don't want to give it. But ask somebody next to you or around you, how would you define growing up? And we'll take 5 minutes.